The most famous one that I remember back in our territory, back in the day, back in the 70s, was we had. We had gone through all the talks, or I had gone through all the talks with Elvis Presley's father, Vernon Presley, to have a match between Elvis and I at the Mid-South Coliseum, martial arts against wrestling match. Yeah, and of course, I talked to Vernon on two different occasions. He ran it by Elvis. They thought it would be a lot of fun and a great idea, and so it was all scheduled to take place after Elvis got back from his tour. I'll never forget Vernon's one of the last things he said to me. He said, "I'll be honest with you, Jerry. Elvis is not in that great a shape right now, but he's fixing to start working out and getting ready for this tour. And as soon as the tour is over, we'll do this thing." And then of course he never made it to the tour. Wow. So hey, yeah, that was one.
That would have been like more of an Andy. I mean, the build up for that. I mean, who would have gotten over? Who would have been good guy? I mean, Elvis is loved in Memphis. So are you. Who would have? I mean, how would that been booked? If that would have happened?
Well, that's I've thought about that many times. Like, what would we have done? And I can tell you honestly, we would have done anything that would have made him happy. So, because the great thing with Andy was when Andy came and got involved with wrestling, he knew, I mean, he was just a big fan, and he knew that he was out of his element. So he just turned everything over to us. I mean, just let us guide him through anything, and anything we wanted to do was cool with him. He was just working with wrestling people. But with the Elvis thing, I mean, that I would think that we would have been, it's like Andy wanted to work with us, and in this case, we would have wanted to work with Elvis. So, I mean, I'm sure that we would have anything that would have been okay with him to do is what we would have done.
Could you imagine, King, if you would have given Elvis Presley a pile driver?
Oh yeah, wouldn't that be something?
That would be, there's certain things that happen in of course, everybody's life that, puts them on a different path. And obviously this is before Andy Kaufman even came to the idea of wanting to wrestle and whatnot. I mean, if you would have had that match with Elvis Presley and given him a pile driver, which made headlines across the nation, even the match would have made headlines. Just imagine in late mid-70s where that would have put you on a path to after that.
Yeah, I mean, this was in 1977. This was the same year, that he passed away.
Yeah.
So it's no telling. But you got to realize that, I swear, and it's hard for people to think because they don't even think of that period of time in Elvis's career. It's like after Elvis passed away, he became so much bigger of a deal nationwide and locally than he was when he was, at that time. Yeah, he was still Elvis Presley and he was still a big deal and everything. But I don't know. It wasn't the magnitude of the stardom at that point in time. It was almost like, here's a guy that's, I don't want to say fading in his career or anything like that, because he was fixing to do another big, almost like a comeback tour. But you just have to know the situation. It probably wouldn't have been as big a deal as we think it would, after he's passed away, as you think it would now. If Elvis hadn't passed away and everything, and we actually did the match, it probably wouldn't have been probably wouldn't have gotten as much coverage as the Andy Kaufman thing did.
Okay.
Because Andy at the time was on the top television show in the country. He was a big deal to everybody nationwide.
Yeah. Well, my parents weren't even together yet when Elvis passed away, so that's gives you an idea of where I'm coming from. But when I hear Elvis Presley, no matter how old he was or what stage of his career is in, I mean, that's a huge name. And you're right. Even after his death, he still lives on. Graceland and the whole little.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it's a terrible thing. But people I heard somebody say that, like Elvis dying was the best career movie ever made.
Oh God!
I mean, No, that's a horrible thing to say, but the legend and the persona of Elvis Presley grew, you know, unbelievably then.
Did you ever go to Graceland when he was alive?
When he was alive, yeah, yeah.
So you
But I
don't,
mean, it was different then. You didn't go to. I mean, that's one of the things that's all changed about it. You couldn't go to Graceland when Elvis was alive.
well, I'm saying,
I mean, unless you were invited in
were you
by him
invited?
personally.
Were you invited to
Oh,
hang out with Elvis?
no, no, no.
Okay,
I didn't,
okay.
and I didn't actually meet Elvis. I just talked to his dad. And,
Okay.
I'd seen Vester out at the guardhouse and all of that sort of stuff,
Right.
but no, never, never went up and actually saw Elvis.
All right. So,
But it's funny that was the way that whole thing came about was Mickey Poole, this guy that came along and started managing me after Sam Bass was killed in a car accident. Mickey Poole, who I always looked at Mickey as just sort of a goofy, just a kind of a gopher type guy or something like that, and I just had him to kind of almost carry my bags and just hang out and drive for me on all of these different trips and stuff. So, but then, and one day the way the whole thing came about, one day we were just driving up to Louisville from Nashville, and Mickey's, I don't know what we talked about. Wouldn't it be cool I was talking about, wouldn't it be cool to have a match with Elvis Presley? Because Elvis Presley was really in the news then about karate and doing all this karate. And I think this is when his wife, Priscilla, had kind of, I don't know, I think they had a falling out. And Priscilla, I think, was doing some hanky-panky with one of Elvis's karate teachers. So it was, that was what was in the news back then. And I thought, I was telling Mickey Poole, how cool would it be to have a match with Elvis? And just out of the clear blue, he said, well, you know what? If you want, I'll have my brother ask him if he'd want to do that. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, my brother is the president of the Elvis International Fan Club and has been for like 8 years. And hangs out at Graceland all the time. I said, oh, Mickey, you're crazy. And he said, no, really, I'm serious. And he said he talks to all of them all the time.
wow.
And I thought the guy was just making this up, And then the next day, he says, I talked to my brother. He said he'll run it by. He said he'll talk to Vernon and run it by Elvis and all this sort of stuff. They thought it was a great idea. And I said, you're crazy. And he said, I'm serious. He said, matter of fact. He said, Vernon, I gave him your number, and Vernon Presley's going to call you. And now I'm thinking, now I know this guy's lost his mind, right? And so sure enough, the next day, I leave home, I go to Evansville, Indiana, or something. Anyway, when I get home that night, I said, well, you had a phone call earlier today, and I said, who was it? And they said, well, he said it was Vernon Presley. And I said, you're kidding. So anyway, that went on 2 different times. He called and on a wrestling trip, and then finally they gave him the date to specifically call me. And sure enough, he calls up this, Vernon Presley, and he said that Mickey's brother had run the idea by him, and Elvis liked it, and that's when he told me that when he gets back from the tour, we'll put the thing together.
Oh wow!
So
that would have been great to have that.
It would have been great.
to your resume of wrestling Elvis Presley, even no matter what condition he was in, that would have blown. I mean, maybe you're right, not nationally, but the city of Memphis.
You almost said that would have blown the internet up, or that would have blown Twitter up.
That would have blown the tabloids.
There was no such thing as that stuff back then.
And that would have blown the roof off Mid-South Coliseum.
Yeah, right. That would
have been great. So that's like the one match. I mean, notable match that never took place that was discussed behind the scenes. That's like the one match you can recall. Because you wrestled everybody basically. So I mean, even Ric Flair to Hulk Hogan to Andre the Giant. We'll talk to you in a few minutes, talk about in a few minutes. I wish we could talk to Andre, but no. So that's
shovel a flashlight.
So that's the one. That's the one match to answer Arnie's question.
I think so. I can't think of anything other than that comes to mind right off the bat.
Is there
that kind of stuff does go on, especially in the WWE all the time.
Was there a match in the WWE concerning you or an angle discussed with you that never took place?
Not that I know of.
No.